Welcome back to the Project Podcast. I'm your host, Connor Lewis, and this is a conversation show about the Final Four and the NCAA Finals. And today, I'm joined with my good friend, Carter Jones. Carter, can you introduce yourself, man? Tell us a little bit about how it's going for you.
It's going pretty good. I've just been glad watching the March Madness games. It's a good wrap to it. But yeah, I've just been really indulged in it, and I'm excited to talk about it today.
All right, we got a lot to get into, so why don't we just jump right in and just tell me your big picture thoughts about March Madness overall, the Final Four, and most importantly, the finals.
I think it was really competitive basketball in the Final Four. Between the first two games, I thought it was really good, and the championship game too. Um, no blowouts. I was expecting
Mm.
that Duke game to be a little bit more of a blowout. Not really a blowout, but a lot more heavy Duke side, even though they ended up losing. So I was expecting that game to be in Duke's favor. Um, but Houston really battled well in that, and Auburn and Florida was a great game, and Florida and Houston in the championship was a great game as well. So just great basketball all around in the those final three games, and I was just glad watching them for sure.
Yeah, I mean, listen, my first thought was, excuse my language, but my first thought was, holy shit, right? I mean, that
Yeah.
Florida didn't have a lead to the last 30 seconds of that game. And I
Mhm.
think, obviously we expected a lot of Walter Clayton and, maybe the scoring wise didn't really show up, but I think we can agree that Will Richard was unbelievable.
Yeah.
He had four of Florida's six total threes, which is insane. He led the team in scoring and rebounding. He had 18 and 8 that game. Just a great game from him. Do you have any Will Richard thoughts?
Um, you'll hear me talking about him a little bit later on too.
Okay.
But he really like he stepped up. I feel like during that game, in that first half especially, they were trying to take away Walter Clayton a lot, and that kind of left him to step up for them, and I feel like he did that very well. To bounce off that though, with I want to hear your thoughts on out of those three games, which one was your favorite? Which one was the best one to watch in your opinion?
Well, I mean, I didn't like either of the two Final Four games because it totally blew my prediction. Honestly, I'll be honest. I mean, it totally.
Hmm.
I was upset by that. I did have Duke Auburn in the finals, but I will say that the finals had to be my favorite. I just listen. The NCAA finals, there's just a different type of energy, and we can talk about this a little bit later. But I think out of as far as American sports go, I don't know if there's a better atmosphere than the NCAA finals and March Madness overall. But I really think the finals, the whole crowd is into it. I mean, it's not random celebrities like the Super Bowl. It's not, a bunch of really rich people. It's a bunch of real fans. That's what you get with college sports that you don't get with the pros. Pro sports are less about fans and more just about money. College sports, now it's about money a little more. But I think they're just when you're a diehard fan of Florida or Houston, you're a diehard fan. You're not going away. You're going to be rowdier than anyone else in any other sport. And so I think that's my overall thoughts. And you just gain a lot from from the finals overall. And again, the Duke game was great, and both Final Four games were great. Honestly, I enjoyed watching them both, but I just think the finals was great. Now, what do you think about that?
I completely agree. I think college basketball and college sports, um, they bring a different level when it comes to fans, and I feel like the fans
Mm,
play a lot more of a factor in the games. Because as a college student, I feel like you have a lot of love for your school, and that comes with the sports that you watch as well. So I think that leads to more fan involvement in those games. And I think that overall March Madness, in my opinion, is the best sporting event in history. I think it's up there with the Olympics. NBA playoffs are
mm,
really good too, but just the atmosphere of March Madness, I feel like, as a kid in high school, sneaking your phone in at class to check the games and the scores as they start at like 12 for me.
yeah.
But I mean, just that atmosphere, like those first couple rounds are really good, even though you might see like a lot of upsets as it's like a 1-16 game, but the 8-9 games and all those other games are really fun to watch. And I think throughout the tournament, basketball just gets more competitive, and it's just great sports to watch as a big fan of it. So yeah.
Now, let me ask you this because I remember this a lot during high school. There would be like the cool teacher that show the March Madness, or sometimes even the World Cup, but mostly March Madness. Do you have that still, or is that something that's gone extinct?
Um, For me, it's gone extinct. I think a bunch of my teachers make brackets and they'll talk about the games, but I haven't had a teacher that's played the games. I'm in a sports and rec class, which is like a sports management type of class, and we made brackets
Mhm.
in there. And we'll recap the games every day. So, but that's earlier on in the day. So we probably would have watched the games in there, but besides that, no, I haven't had a teacher recently that's played the games for us in class.
I guess high school is more strict than it used to be. Well, listen, I got a Will Richard piece. I don't know if you know this story about Will Richard. He withdrew from the NBA draft about a year ago today, just about. He returned to college. He was looking like a second round pick. We didn't really know where he was going to go, but we kind of figured he'd be a second round pick. He goes back to college, has an incredible championship game, and his stock is higher than ever. And I really think he's the true winner of this all. I mean,
Mm.
like I said, he had 18 and 8 in the finals. He was lights out from three. He had the majority of Florida's threes. I don't know. What do you make of all that?
Um, a picture perfect scenario for someone like him. You know, I don't know what grade he's in. Is he a senior?
I think
He
he's a
might
senior
be.
now.
Um, yeah. So, I think he transferred to Florida in his sophomore year,
Yep.
and draft stock. He had a pretty good draft stock before, based on what you said. Um, but as a senior, obviously, it's really hard to get into the draft, regardless of how good you are. But to end off the season like the way he did and the way he played it's like that's the dream. Showing up in a big game in front of a big crowd, and also putting yourself up there with some of the best draft stocks of the senior class right now. That's definitely got to be, that's a great scenario for him, and I hope he goes to the NBA and has some success there. Because I mean, he showed the talent that he has and what he's capable of doing in that championship game for sure.
Yeah, and now listen. Let me pose you this question because you brought this up. You put it on our little spreadsheet here. Do you have a player that really stuck out to you over like the Final Four in the finals? I mean, even March Madness to an extent, but more so those last two games.
Yeah, I do. I actually have two guys.
Hmm.
I have Will Richards. I mean, looking at, I put some stats up here. He scored 18 points in that last game.
Yep.
The two games prior, he scored 7 and 6. So, you know, not great scoring games for him. And then he just goes ballistic in the championship game. I mean, that's just some guy who he's clutch. I mean, he stepped up when they needed him to, and he played well. And then my second guy, which I'll go into a little bit more, is Jawan Roberts for Houston.
Okay.
Um, Specific piece was he showed up big against Duke at the end. He had two clutch free throws, which put them up as they were down by one. And they put them up by one. And then Cooper Flag on his game-winning shot that he had, his shot attempt, he was guarded by Juwan
Yeah.
Roberts, and he played great defense there. And I feel like he's a game changer the whole in both of those games. I have him down in Duke. He had 11 and 12 for
Okay.
points and boards, and then for Florida he had 8 and 8. So I mean, just great stat lines for him over those last two games. He played well. He was a great defender, and he caused havoc in the paint. He had 3 blocks against Florida as well. So he's just out there doing the little things, the gritty things to help put them in a good spot to win. Unfortunate that they lost in that championship game, but I feel like he was really a big game changer for them to put them in a good spot for sure.
Yeah, listen, I agree with you. I don't think it can be understated how much an important big man is, especially those rebounds in college, because those are. I mean, I don't know the numbers, but I'm sure there's a good amount of offensive rebounds over those last couple games. I
Hmm.
think that's really the most important part of this. That's like a big piece to that. Is that makes a big difference. And when I talk about my guy in just a second, he's another guy that was totally important in the middle and really gave an impact on those rebounds. And that guy's Alex Condon from Florida. And between Richard
Mm.
and Clayton and him, that is a really great trio to have. I mean, that is like a can't miss trio. And I mean, Clayton, listen, Houston did their homework. They were blitzing ball screens all day long on Clayton the entire game. I mean, he didn't shoot particularly well, but his playmaking, I mean, it's as good as you can get in college. I mean, he's not going to have 15 assists like the NBA, but listen, like I think he had 8 or 7. That's like great for college. So and Condon, listen, in the middle, he's a really special player. I mean, listen, he made clutch defensive play after clutch defensive play. He had a really late steal that kind of sealed the game a little bit. And I just felt like you could always feel his presence. I think that you can't understate that enough. In college, having a true big guy down low like a Zach Edey, like the last few years we had, is majorly important. And I don't know how Condon works if he ever, tries to go in the NBA. I don't know really where he fits, but I think for college, his legacy is going to be that Florida team doesn't win without him. I mean, they don't win without Richard or Clayton, but they definitely don't win without him either. And I think that's the biggest thing I can take from that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But my thoughts based off that is I completely agree. He was probably one of the other guys I was gonna say. I thought that was a good pick though for sure. I mean, he was definitely a game changer down the line, and I mean, play after play, I'd see him doing something, whether it was getting a board or he was getting a good look inside. I mean, he was just great for them in Florida. And I didn't know a lot about Florida going into the tournament,
Mhm.
as I did other teams, but he was a guy who stuck out to me really quickly because he made his presence felt all the time when he's out there on the floor.
Now, do you have any last big picture thoughts before we jump into this draft? I know you really, I mean, I really want to do the draft, but I know you had a great idea for this draft, so we can jump into that. But if you have any last second thoughts, please feel free.
No, I'm ready. I'm ready for the draft for sure. I'm excited for this.
Okay, so this is the channel's second draft I think I've done on here, but between me and Carter, this is our first. So how this is going to work is we're going to go back and forth, choosing 5 players from March Madness teams that we really like that just trying to build the best team, plus one bench player that had to come off the bench for the whole season, and a coach. So now Carter's going to go first, and obviously we can't pick the same player, so we have a large pool to pick from. I mean, and any team in March Madness is fair game, right? Any team that played in March pretty much is all good. So, Carter, why don't you start us off? Who do you got first pick?
All right, so with the first pick and probably the consensus first pick in the draft, if he declares there this year, I'm going to go with Cooper Flag as my small forward.
Yeah, that's a great pick, and we're gonna talk more about Cooper Flag as far as NBA goes, but listen, I mean, there's not much I can say about Cooper Flag that hasn't already been said. He's a can't miss prospect, athletic. He can handle the ball. He has a jumper a little bit, rebounder. I think he led Duke in all major stats. Again, I mean, I just think that that's the most important thing, and I just don't think there's a different player I would pick for first overall. But do you have any Cooper Flag thoughts off the top of your head?
Um, I just hope that he declares for the draft. That's the only thing I got to say about him. You know, he's proven himself to everybody who watches basketball that he's the type of guy that you want on your team. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, listen, you took my first pick. I mean, that's no surprise though. But I'm gonna take my guy, power forward. I'm probably gonna butcher his name again, but Jahani Broom. Am I saying that right this time or no?
I think it's Janai Broom, but
Janai. Whatever.
I mean, you got the point across. I mean, his name's all you need to know.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, I've talked about him last episode, so if you really want to know my deep thoughts, I would check out the previous episode. A lot of people did. That was great. Um, but again, just another big power forward, a guy that I really am excited to see what happens for him in the NBA and where he goes in this upcoming draft. But I mean, I don't really have more thoughts on him that I can really speak to. I mean, he worked hard in that Final Four game. It didn't really go his way, but listen, he's going to make a great impact in the NBA. I don't know if you have any more thoughts about him.
Um, I hope the best for him when it comes to this coming draft. I've seen his draft stock go up a lot. I think he'll probably go at the end of the first round. So, I'm just excited to see where he goes for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this pick is now yours. So I'm going to let you take the floor.
All right. I want to lock up my six man early, and I'm going to take Tahad Pettiford for Auburn. You know, I feel
Mm.
like usually bench guys aren't like most of the time bench guys aren't better than like majority of the starters, but in his case he was. You know, I feel like he was a great I feel like that's a great pick for me and my team because you know I like him a lot as a player, but he might be the best six man in college basketball with his impact on the court and you know he showed up big for Auburn and the whole tournament. So yeah, I'm glad with my pick with Todd at my six man for sure.
Listen, that's a great pick. I mean, you can go a million different ways with this bench pick. My bench pick is much later because I know that you're not going to pick him because he's from a not a very well known school. I'll be completely honest, but I really like his game. I've watched a lot of him, but we'll get there when we get there. I don't have many thoughts on him personally, so I'll just jump to my next pick. For my point guard, I'm going to take Walter Clayton. I think that's just a safe pick for your point guard. Um, Again, we know he struggled scoring wise in the finals. I mean, that's not really groundbreaking, but his playmaking was great, and I don't really need anything from him except the playmake. I mean, you play with a guy. as I build my team up, there's going to be a lot of scoring. So as long as he's distributing and playing good defense that he does, I'm pretty content. I don't know if you have any Walter Clayton thoughts though.
Um, he's another guy where his draft stock's gone up a lot. And I saw someone talking about him earlier today. Forget who it was, but they said that this is a pretty bizarre take, but they said that they thought that he could go like in the top five of this next draft just based off talent. And
Okay.
he really showed up in March. I mean, I wouldn't take him in top five, obviously, but that's just some of the opinions, and that's like how the type of praise that he's getting right now as a player based on the performance that he's had in March. But yeah, I mean, he's just fun to watch, and he's great down the stretch.
Now for your third pick, who do you got?
With my third pick, I'm gonna lock up. Um, I'm gonna lock up my shooting guard pretty early. I'm gonna take Jeremiah Fears out of Oklahoma.
Okay.
Um, he's another guy where I mean he only played one game in March because they got knocked off by UConn in the first game, but he really showed up in that first game. I mean he went off. He had a great game. He showed off his finishing capabilities around the hoop and also his shooting from outside. But he's just another guy who's really fun to watch, and he's just a guy that, as a basketball player myself, I tend to try and base my game off of. But
Hmm.
I'm glad with that pick. I think he'll definitely flow well in the type of team that I'm trying to draft. If I can get the rest of my guys, but yeah.
I like that pick, honestly. I think that's a really good pick. I don't have a lot of thoughts on him, but I think you kind of summed it up perfectly. So I'll jump over to my third pick. It's also I'm picking a guard. Um, I'm gonna pick Mark Sears out of Bama. Listen, a guy that kind of went under the radar, but he still was All American. Listen, he's undersized. It'll be a little weird to see what happens with him and Clayton. But I think, this guy's he's a fiery guard. He wasn't the most efficient, but listen, he's going to give you 100% effort. And I can tell you that much. Now, Bama didn't have the greatest basketball season, I would say. Maybe for their standards, it was pretty good, but I certainly expected more out of them. This guy is a fifth year. And listen, he's electric. I mean, he can shoot a little bit. He can take it to the rim. He can pass pretty well for college. He's averaging 5 assists. And I just think he's going to mesh well with this team. I mean, I think we're building an unselfish team, and I think he brings that to the table. And he won a ton of awards. He was selected for a ton of teams so far already. I just think he's a can't miss player. And I don't know like how far he'll go if I don't think he's declaring for the draft by any means, but I think that he's just a safe option for my number three. And we're back. You may notice that my hair is shorter. My shirt is totally different. Carter's shirt is very different. This is because we're filming on a different day. We had a lot of technical issues yesterday. We're hoping that it's going to be better today. So unfortunately, this episode is going to be a little later than usual. We didn't want it to be so late in the week, but listen, we're just jump right back in. Carter, you have the fourth pick right now. Let us know who you got.
All right, with the fourth pick, for my power forward, I'm going to take Danny Wolf out of Michigan.
Yeah, listen, I know you have a lot of thoughts about him. I know we talked about him a little bit. Listen, I love this guy. I mean, I talked about him last week. This kid is a real ball player. He's strong. Listen, he's the perfect big man you need right now in college. And I know they fell short against Auburn, but listen, he had a great game that game. He dropped 20. So I'm gonna let you take the floor on this. I know he's your pick, but I just want to get that out there.
Yeah, I mean, he's the type of guy that I want on my team. Big 7 footer. I'm looking to put him at the 4 spot and trying to have a bigger team in my draft. But he shoots the ball well. He moves well for his size as well. And I think if I can get the guy that I want in my center position, I feel like they'll match well together. And
Hmm.
I think that might put my team over the hump to beat your team in the vote for the subscribers who have a say in it.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I'm not going to promise you anything because I know there's probably some bias towards me, but that's okay. But listen, with my fourth pick, I'm taking the now national champion Alex Condon. Listen, I love this guy so much. I know I talked about him already a lot this episode and last, but listen, just to retread the same water, basically. This guy's a big guy in the middle. He can block shots. He's a great defender. He really key defensive stops. His presence is always felt. That's my big man right there. I mean, that is the type of guy you want in the big man in the center position. A guy you can kind of match up with Wolf or whoever you throw at center. I don't have many more notes to say about him. I don't know if you do either, but listen, I've said everything I need to say. This is my guy, and I'm going to stick by him.
Yeah, no particular notes that I have from him, but just watching him in the game, he stands out, and the way he plays, it's noticeable. He always has an impact on the floor. So yeah, I like that pick a lot too. That'll definitely be a tough matchup with Wolf or whoever he ends up guarding.
So you have the fifth pick. So I don't know if you're going to take your coach or you're going to take your other big man or what. So let's see where you go.
Um, I'm gonna lock up my big man to go along with Danny Wolf. I'm gonna take Derek Queen out of Maryland.
Okay.
Um, you know, Younger guy. I've had a lot of praise of him. In the past episode, I talked a lot about him, but in this episode, I'll talk a little bit about him as well. He led his team throughout March, and he's a good big body. Um, I think him and Wolf will kind of bounce off each other the way they play. Wolf is a little bit quicker, and he shoots the ball up better than Derek Queen, but Queen plays well down low, and I feel like those two together will definitely cause a lot of trouble for any guards or any people trying to get into the paint, and also on offense, they're a tough duo to guard for sure.
Listen, I really like that pick, and I'm going to tell you why. I think that is a perfect big man duo, like twin towers, if you will. I know that's not exactly the nicest term these days, but it is a great twin towers duo with Wolf and Queen. I know Queen has really high draft stock right now, so that's what I really like about him. I mean, he's another big guy, so he kind of fits perfectly because Wolf is like a really nice shooter, and then you have Queen who can kind of just do everything down low. I mean, Queen can pass a little bit too, just like Wolf. So you kind of get that you can kind of run a low post, high post kind of offense. And I think that works really well. I really like that pick from you.
Let's see who you
So
have at the fifth pick. Yeah.
listen, I'm gonna take this is my bench guy. I'm not gonna take my other forward. I'm gonna save it because I know I'm gonna have him. Morez Johnson Jr. Now listen, the thing about him is now that we got to film this a little later, we know that he where did he commit? Michigan? Do I have that right?
I'll check that for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, either way, while you're checking that, listen, this guy's a freshman. He's really underrated. He came out of Illinois. My favorite thing about him is he has the highest motor, maybe of anyone in college. And I know that's a really high claim for someone who barely scratched, who didn't even play 20 minutes a game. Listen, in about 17, 18 minutes, he's averaging over 2 offensive rebounds a game, close to 3, and he's a forward. That is really perfect for what you want. He's a big, strong guy. And listen, I'll be completely honest. His offensive game needs work. He's not really a shooter at all. But as far as motor goes, you can't teach motor. You can't teach athleticism, and you cannot teach what he has. He just has those intangibles you just want, and that is my sixth man. And I'm going to stick with my guy because this is a buy low, sell high guy. He's going to have a great year at Michigan next year, and you guys are going to understand why I took him right here.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. And we're not talking about the transfer portal just yet, but
Mm-hmm.
that's just another guy that Michigan's getting. I think Michigan's really making a statement in this off season for them for college basketball. I think they're going to come in next year. They're going to be one of the teams to beat. I feel like in the preseason rankings, they're definitely going to be up there. Getting a guy like Morris Johnson Jr. and also Elliot Cadeau, that's going to put
Mm-hmm.
them over the hump, I think, next year. So yeah, I mean, I like that pick a lot too. That's a good six man to have.
And listen, I'm going to let you take your pick next, but we don't know what else is going to happen. This transfer portal has been unbelievable. I've been like blindsided almost completely by some of the moves that are happening. So by the time this comes out, they could have another guy, Michigan. They could be stacking their guys, and they might make a run next year. And I like what they got going so far. But anyway, well, I'll let you take your next pick.
All right. With my fifth pick, I am going to take my coach, Kevin Sampson.
Mm,
I like him a lot. His scheme that he runs, he's a very defensive orientated coach. Throughout basketball, my favorite coaches that I've had have always been pride themselves on defense. The saying, defense wins championships is very true. They took themselves to the championship and gave them a good opportunity to win based on their scheme that they ran. And I just kind of want that type of guy to be leading my team to whoever we have to play against, and I just like the way he runs his defense for sure. Mainly his defense. And I think the offensive threats of my team will be able to figure it out, but I think he'll will our team to victory for sure.
And listen, I'm going to take my coach right now, and then I'll talk a little bit about Samson. I'm taking Rick Pitino as my coach. I know we talked a little bit about coaches yesterday, like off stream. Um, but listen, these are two guys that are hard nosed coaches. They care a lot about defense and they care a lot about winning. Now, these guys are kind of like yin and yang to me. Like, I think they are two sides of the same coin almost. They have very similar mentalities. I don't think their defensive scheme is the same, but I think their mentality as far as defense goes is very similar. And I think that we're going to get a great game if you have these two guys coaching against each other. It's going to be a real chess match. I think that's what the NBA is missing that college basketball has is that college basketball is a chess match. You're kind of trying to match up guys on one another. You're trying to see what they're doing and match that with what you got. The NBA used to really be like that in the 80s and 90s. It's kind of changed a little bit because everyone's so versatile. But in college, I think this is a great example of a real chess match game that could happen between these two coaches. And Sampson's a guy I really like. So I think that's a great pick from you. I'm just going to take Patino because he's my guy, and I'm always going to ride with Patino.
Yeah, I like that pick. And to talk about, the NBA and college coaches, a little comparison that I think I can make to college basketball rather than NBA is college coaches have to game plan more like it's football game. They have longer periods in between their games. There's a lot more strategy, I feel like, and like some of these schools where they don't have necessarily the biggest talent, they have to game plan more and they have to rely on their strategy to win them games rather than in the NBA, you have like big star talent where you don't have to really direct the guys as much. But when it comes to coaching in college basketball, I think it's important to have a guy that's really gonna put your team in the right spot to win. And regardless of the talent you have in your team, the coach will win you the game. I think a lot of the times in college basketball for sure.
That's a really good point. Honestly, I never really thought of it like that. It really does come down to how much time you have to coach. Because in the NBA, obviously the season's 82 games, but I think the players have so much power over the coaches. We just saw Mike Malone famously get fired from the Denver Nuggets, which is I still don't believe that. And
Hmm.
I don't have any prep work about Mike Malone or anything like that, but I love Malone as a coach, and I really don't get it. I mean, again, I don't have any notes on Malone. I just don't really going off the cuff. I just have nothing, no words about how that happened. But that doesn't really happen in college. Patino is a hard ass. I'll be honest, he is a hard ass, and there's some guys who in the NBA would not respond well, but that doesn't happen in college because you still have to earn your stripes in college, and I think that's the biggest difference. But I'm gonna let you take your. I think this is your last pick, right?
Yes, this is.
So why don't you take your last pick, and then we can. I'll take mine, and then we'll discuss.
All right, my last pick at my point guard will be Braden Smith from Purdue.
Mm,
Do you have any thoughts
okay.
on him at all?
Honestly, I don't have any strong thoughts. I didn't watch a lot of Purdue this season, but I'm gonna let you take the stage on Braden Smith. Honestly, I'm gonna let you talk a little bit about him. I know you like him a lot, so let me see what you got.
Yeah. Well, I think he's definitely proved himself this year to be one of the best guards in college basketball. When I was watching the McNeese State game, I heard their coach talk about Braden, and he said that this previous years, playing with Zach Edey, he's been more of like a passing role, but his coach has really pushed him to become more of a scorer in this next season as he's the leader of his team. And I think he did that completely well, especially during March. He's a scrappy guard. That's the type of guard that I like to have on my team, especially my point guard. And he works hard. I think he does the little things right to help his team win. That's kind of the guy that I want to have for sure.
Listen, again, I don't know much about him, so I'm gonna take your word for Braden Smith, but I'm just gonna give you my last pick. I don't know if you have any thoughts on JT Toppin. That's my last pick. It's my
Mm.
other forward. Listen, it's college. It's not all about threes like the NBA, so I don't need to focus on spacing as much as I need explosiveness. And listen, I don't think there might not be a more explosive guy than JT Toppin in college basketball right now. He just had a great year at Texas Tech. He was at I think New Mexico his freshman year. He played really well. He goes to a better conference in the Big 12. Averages like 18 and 9, and he just offensive rebounds all game. Another guy who has a high motor. I mean, that's what I love. I mean, I love guys who are willing to just put their body on the line to win the game, and I don't think there's a better example than JT Toppin. Again, 18 and 9, very efficient. He's been developing a jump shot, which is great. I think he's got a bright future, and I think he can make the NBA eventually. I actually think he has the skill set to do so. he might be more like a small ball five in the NBA, which is a little different from I'm sure what he's used to because he's more of a three or a four. But again, I think he just has all the tools to be great, and I think he's gonna have a great year next year. I think he's sneaky for a All American, but very sneaky pick for All American. I wouldn't put money on that, but I would say that if you see him on that list, don't be surprised. He's due for a great year. But I don't know if you have any JT Toppin thoughts.
Yeah, I actually haven't seen much of him playing wise, but he's actually one of the guys that I was looking to take in my draft. I took
Mm.
Wolf over him, but looking at his stats and seeing some of the highlights that he have, I love that pick. I think he's definitely a valid guy to have on your team. He's the guy you want to have. He's a game changer, and I feel like just like Braden Smith, based on what you described, he does the little things. He gets scrappy, he gets those boards and stuff like that. And that's the type of guy you want, especially to fill out your four spot.
Okay, so we're gonna leave this draft up to the fans. We're gonna see who the fans prefer between our two teams. I know I'm gonna win, so I'm not really concerned about it. So unless you have any final thoughts on the draft, I think we should move on to our transfer portal highlight. I know a lot has happened in the transfer portal since we were supposed to film, which was just yesterday, but a lot has happened already. Um, I have a pick that I was very clear on when I put my list together a couple days ago. I really like this guy, and I think it's a crazy move. But I don't know if you want to start this. You want to get going with this?
Yeah, I got a couple guys on here. I won't go
Mm.
too deep into any of them, but
Take your
I
time.
want
Let
to.
me talk me through it.
All right. So the first guy that I have is Jaleel Bethea to Alabama. You know, he's going into his sophomore year now, and going into his freshman year, he's a five-star recruit, great player. He was people had really high hopes for him going into his freshman year, and part of the reason why he didn't show up as much is because his playing time was so it wavered too much. Like he'd start games and the next thing you know he'd play another game off the bench and he'd play like 15 minutes. So it was just a weird freshman year for him. I have his numbers down. He averaged 7.1 points per game, 2.1 boards, and he shot 36.8% from the field. So nothing great. But he's going to Alabama. That could be a pretty crowded backcourt, but I think he'll definitely find his way to get some PT there. But yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on him, but that's one of the guys that I wanted to highlight.
I don't know if you how much research you did. If you kind of just were looking at more numbers, but do you know why he's not really he's getting inconsistent minutes? Is there something going off the court, or do you not know?
I'm not sure. I think they did do a coaching. I think they had a change of coaches throughout the season, and people had more hopes for him to get more playing time later on in the second half when they had their new coach, which I think he
Mhm.
might have had. But still, I mean, that's obviously not the greatest thing for a player and a team to have. Just like we were talking about the Nuggets before, like their season could be a little bit shaky from here on out based on them firing their head coach. But same thing with Miami, that probably wasn't great for them as a team.
Miami's interesting overall. I mean, my guy just transferred to Miami, and I think it's a really I think it's kind of strange for him. So honestly, I'll just jump into it because I'm already talking about it. I might as well. I'm talking about True Washington. This kid out of New Mexico. Listen, he's going into his junior year in Miami. Miami, not a very good team. New Mexico had a really good year, but it seems like everyone's just leaving New Mexico. I don't know if it's the conference or if it's the team culture or what. Maybe it's the food. Honestly, I don't know. But what I do know is Washington's freshman year was rough. First couple games, he's averaging like 6 points a game, shooting 30% from the field. He wasn't great. I don't know what we expected out of him. I think he was a four-star recruit coming out of high school. But slowly he's kind of like sneakily improved, and there's a little bit of a wrinkle where it's like his jumper got really good out of nowhere. And I think him going to Miami, they're picking up new assistants, they're picking up Trey Donaldson, they're making all these moves, and they might have made another move. By the time I'm talking right now and this video's out, they may have made another pickup. But again, Miami's just had a bad year, if we're just like record wise. But it seems like they're just like stocking up on really good talent, and they're picking up new coaches, and just it's like what's going on here? I don't really understand it. I don't know if you have any strong thoughts on True Washington or even Miami as a whole.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about that, but going to Miami, um, it's a weird situation. It's hard to predict what their season's going to be like next year. They could have a good season, they could have another pretty bad season like this year. But they're definitely one of those teams where I'm going to be looking out for next year because I want to see how their season plays out. Because I feel like they could end up getting into March at the same time, but they could also be just as bad as they were this year. So yeah, I'm definitely excited and anticipating just anticipating a different season for them. I don't know what it's gonna be, what it entails for them, but I'm just excited to see what happens over there.
Listen, that's a team to look out for. I mean, I like when teams make big swings. I like when anyone makes a big swing. I just saw a movie the other day about called The Death of a Unicorn, and it was a bad movie, but it was the biggest swing I've ever seen. But so I loved it. I loved it just because it's a big swing. So when a team makes a big swing, I love it, and I love what Miami's doing. They're trying to make a big team culture switch, and I like that. Whenever a team does that, I'm always on their side, and I always prefer them. But you said that you had multiple, so if you have another transfer portal highlight you want to talk about, feel free. You have the floor. This is all you.
Yeah, this is probably one of the more recent highlights is Robert Wright from Baylor to go to BYU.
Yes.
BYU made a little run in March this year, but this next year they're looking scary already. They got AJ DeBanza coming in, now the number two recruit behind Darian Peterson in this next the high school class, the senior class right now. Um, when I was watching Baylor in March, I only knew three names off that team, and there was Jeremy Roach, VJ Edgecombe, and Robert Wright. And I knew Robert Wright because he played with Cooper Flagg and Derek Queen, all those guys at Montverde his
Yep.
senior year. That team was filthy, and I feel like he kind of like flew under the radar compared to those guys because there are some really big names. He's a shorter guard, but I mean, he put on a show when I watched him play against Duke on Baylor this March, and he was great. And I'm excited to see what BYU as a whole team does next year because I mean, the amount of NIL money they had, and they brought in some really big guys. There's a lot of hype going around their team next year, and I feel like they're gonna definitely live up to it. I feel.
Now with BYU, there's like this whole wrinkle where it's like, why? Where everyone's kind of like, why is everyone going there? I work in a college D1 college office, so I talk about this stuff a lot with everybody. I mean, this is like normal conversation. So the whole conversation is like, what are they doing at BYU that's so different? Here's what they're doing. They run a really great business program for their D1 athletes. They run a great program for financial literacy, for investing in the athlete's future, like financially. And I think that's what's sending them over the edge. And I think a lot of colleges are going to start doing that soon, but BYU just got ahead of it. And now they got AJ DeBonza. I'm definitely butchering it.
Debanza, yeah.
DeBanza. Okay. I'm not good with names. If you haven't noticed yet, honestly, I don't think I pronounced one name right so far. But that's what they're doing differently. They also have alumni that really care about basketball, so they're getting a lot of money donated. And I really like BYU's program. I mean, I don't care for them as a school. I don't care for the people that go there, but I do care for them basketball wise, and I think they have a really good shot next year. I think they're going to make a run. I think this might be like a Duke situation where you have a freshman who's going to come out the gate just firing. I could see AJ just absolutely taking a big swing and just going AWire the entire season.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Definitely going to be one of those teams where I'm locked into trying to watch as many games as I can in the regular season before March happens, so I can get a
Hmm.
real consensus of the outlook and the structure of their team for sure.
Now, did you have another transfer portal highlight, or did you want to move on to Cooper Flag stuff?
I'm completely down to move on to Cooper Flag stuff. Yeah.
Because I want to talk about the Cooper Flag, this whole wrinkle they got. We're still unsure, so maybe when this comes out, this whole segment might not mean anything. But we're still unsure if Flag's going to stay, if he's going to go, if he's going to go in the NBA, what. So I have the top three spots for Flag to go into the draft. I think that are the best for him. And I'm going to go 3-1, so three being like the worst and one being the best. Number three, I don't know if you have your list. I don't know what your list looks like, but for number three for me, I have Charlotte. They're at a 14% chance right now. Listen, you got LaMelo Ball. I know he was injured. He's going to be good next year. They have Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, Mark Williams. They dealt with injuries. They're in full tank right now. Listen, they're looking to get that first pick. Everyone knows what they want to do. And there's a big lineup there where it's like you're running like Flag at like the 2 or the 3, and you have Brandon Miller, and your smallest guy is like LaMelo, and he's like 6'5" or 6'6". So it's like I don't even know like how they're going to run that. That's a really big lineup, but and maybe the spacing is like gets to be a problem. But I think Flag and Williams and the pick and roll, it's just like it just kind of feels like that's gross. Like I feel like there's like so much upside there, and I don't have any more thoughts on Charlotte. I don't know if, where you have Charlotte on your list or if you have them at all.
Yeah, I don't have them, but that's a really good pick. You know, they're a team who should be better than the record says every single year. I think LaMelo
Yeah.
gets a lot of injuries. And I think part of that is, the workload that he has on that team. He doesn't have the greatest supporting cast, to help him score and help him change the game a lot. But I mean, if they get someone like Cooper Flag on there, LaMelo's job becomes so much easier. And the future of that team is so much brighter as well. Brandon Miller's great, Mark Williams. That team is young too. So I mean, that's definitely very promising if they can get someone like Cooper Flag, obviously.
Now, did you do a top three or did you just do like one or two teams?
I have like a number one pick that I have, but I have two other teams as well that, I would definitely I wouldn't put one over the other, but I have two other teams, yeah.
Well, why don't you give me one of those? Because maybe we might have some overlap so we can have some conversation here.
All right. One of my teams is the Jazz.
Oh,
Um, I don't know what their current odds are, but they're probably one of the higher odds to get the number one pick. And I think if they manage to do that and they get someone like Cooper Flag in that team, it'll be an interesting dynamic, I think. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the best spot for him, but it's more of like an interesting spot for him. You put him there with Walker Kessler. I like him a lot. He's definitely a really good prospect. But they also got a bunch of other guys like Jordan Clarkson on that team. Keontae George, I'm big on. I expect him to be good, and I think his main part of Keontae's game is his passing ability, and he has already got Walker Kessler out there, but if he can get Cooper Flag out there too, I feel like that'll be a good spot for Flag to start. He'll have like a really good pass first guard that'll definitely get him the looks that he wants to get. So I think the Jazz team, their chances aren't looking like as good as someone like Charlotte is, but if they manage to get the first pick, I'd like that spot for Cooper Flag to develop his game.
and listen, I mean, I think as a fit, I think I could see Utah working. I think from a culture point, I could see Utah working because I just think that there's a certain demographic out there that would really enjoy Cooper Flag's game, similar to the people that like John Stockton back in the 90s. Um, I just think from a marketing point of view, I just don't know if the NBA even lets it happen. I feel like the NBA's got to get involved. They cannot let like this can't miss guy go to Utah. And I know that like it sounds kind of messy, but it's like I just don't know if the NBA lets it happen. Like I know it's like how could the NBA not let it happen? The NBA has their way. Like I just can't explain it. You just kind of trust me on this. I don't have any Utah thoughts really, but I'll give you my number two, and that is Washington. This is a team. Before we talked about Washington, I was really really low on. Listen, they have the worst offense in the league statistically. Bottom five defense, bad culture. I don't really like Brian Keefe as a coach. I just he can't get it going for me. The pool contract's terrible. You know what they do have? They have a bunch of young guys who are ready to go. Bub Carrington, Justin Champagnie, Alex Sarr, Keyshawn George, Colby Jones, AJ Johnson. You could go down the list. You could just name everybody. A bunch of guys that are like under 25 or 26 that just are ready to come out of the gate. And Flag goes there. He's on the East Coast. He's playing against teams like Boston and all the good East Conference teams multiple times a year. So ticket sales are good. And he's like a face of the franchise right away. Like he could end up being the best guy to ever play for the Wizards when it's all said and done if he ends up there. And they have a 14% chance as well. Um, but that's really all I have about Washington.
Yeah, I actually talked about Washington a little bit in our last episode as well.
That's what
And
inspired me, honestly.
yeah, I think like they're not they are a bad team this year, but
Mm.
I think their future is brighter than people give it to them. Um, I'm excited definitely to see like what this draft brings for them because if they can lock up a top three pick, any three of those guys would be great. But obviously, Flag's the number one guy to get. But I think if Flag goes there, that's one of those teams where he'll develop quickly, and I feel like his game could get even better for sure.
And I'm gonna let you take the floor. I know you said you didn't really rank them, but give me your other one that's not your number one.
Yes. My other one is the Brooklyn Nets.
Mm.
And my reasoning for this is I think if Cooper Flag goes there, he might have one of the best rookie seasons that anybody's really had. If he goes to somewhere like the Spurs, he'll be a good rookie, but he won't excel as much as he can. He won't reach his full potential. But if he goes on like a bad team where the supporting cast isn't great and he just goes out there and just hoops as much as he can, I feel like the Brooklyn Nets is a great spot for that. And I think he'll like lock up the Rookie of the Year award. He'll just go out there and just play basketball and he'll make that team better. And I think in give it 2, 3 years time with that team, regardless of how bad they are, I think he can lead them to the promised land and bring them to the playoffs in like 2, 3 years time. So yeah, I think that that's more of like a under the radar pick for where he could go. I'm looking right now; they currently have a 9% chance to get the number one pick. But I think if he does go there, that's going to be a good team for him to just ball out his freshman year.
Brooklyn is so weird. I mean, as long as I've pretty much been alive, I don't think they've ever been good. Honestly, I've my one of my earliest like basketball memories is the Jason or like the Boston trade with Garnett and Paul Pierce to Brooklyn. I think they were still in New Jersey at the time, but I might be wrong on that. I would fact check myself. But that was like they've always kind of been the joke of the league. And to see them get a guy like Flag, and that's not even a team I really considered, full to be completely honest. I mean, I didn't really think about many teams. I thought about San Antonio a little bit. I was like, it's kind of boring. Like we all talked about Flag to San Antonio a million times. Brooklyn it's a weird spot because they might like I think Flag, if they can't put a team together around him, I think he might like be one of those guys that just leave as soon as possible. I don't think he's gonna leave on his rookie contract, but I think like is he really going to stick around in Brooklyn? I mean, I like no star really has. Like no star was like a lifelong Nets player. I mean, even like the greats like Jason Kidd and Vince Carter, they played on other teams before and after they were in Brooklyn. They weren't like Brooklyn wasn't their first team or their last team. I think that it's possible. I'm not saying it's not. I don't think like I think that would work, but I just think that if Flag goes there, I don't think he's sticking around. Now I'm going to give you my number one, and I really want this to happen, which is weird because I hate this team, but I want the Sixers to get Flag really bad. And listen, Philly's in full tank. I don't think there's really any downsides to this team as much as there's question marks. Embiid, is there like a trade market? Are we keeping him? Are we just going to expect him to miss half the season every year if we get Flag? I don't really know what they're thinking there. Paul George, is he done? Is he going to come back next year even though he's 37 and be like pretty good. Like he's going to be competent because he wasn't competent this year. He was pretty bad. I think you can agree with me there. And
Yeah.
then Nick Nurse, he's a coach I like. Is he just gone? I mean, this is what the culture of Philly looks like, and you need a culture reset. And Cooper Flag is a culture reset guy. He's a guy that's just going to bring a completely different mentality. It's a little like Jordan on the Bulls when he got drafted there. The Bulls were kind of a joke. I mean, they had some good guys. They had like Reggie Theus and Orlando Woolridge, but they were still kind of a joke of the league. And then Jordan kind of brought him back to life immediately, and I think Flag can do that. I'm not saying Flag's Jordan. I'm saying that he can bring Philly back to life and be a respectable franchise. But think about the upside they have. They already have Maxey, who is, maybe the most beloved Philly star league wide. Like, usually NBA fans don't like players from Philly unless they're Dr. J. Like, most guys didn't really like Iverson unless you were a Philly fan. Nobody really likes Embiid unless you're a Philly fan. Maxey's just a really likable guy. Quentin Grimes is really good. Jared McCain is really popular. And they're already top 10 in attendance. Like people are going to these games even though they're bad. It's kind of weird. Like Philly fans are very cult like. They will go to these guys' games no matter what. And my last thing is just it's so easy to market Flag. Philly's a top 5 market in the NBA. I think LA's 1, Boston's 2, and New York. No, maybe New York's 1, LA 2, and then Boston 3, and then maybe Philly's like 4 or 5.
Mhm.
Depends if you like Chicago or Miami. I'm really I'm really going on a big tangent here, but I really think Flag to Philly is like good for the league. They stand at 10.5%, so it's not out of the question. I really like that for the league, and I'm going to let you take over. I don't know if you have any Philly thoughts. If you want to talk about Philly, you're free, or if you just want to give me your number one, that's cool too.
Yeah, I'll go a little bit into Philly as well. Um, if I was doing if I was the general manager of Philadelphia, I'd blow it up. I'd build
Yeah.
around McCain, Maxey, and Flag if I got Flag. Embiid, he's fallen off a cliff in the past couple of years. The Paul George experiment failed. And if I had Paul George and I was the general manager, I heard someone say this a little bit ago. I don't know who said it, but just say these two guys are on the table and take the best offer you get. Look to
Yeah.
try and get another big in return for those two guys. If you want to package them together or do them individually, that's completely fine. But I think if they get a core with like Quentin Grimes, Jared McCain, Maxey, and Cooper Flag, that's some good guards and small forwards. But I think you need to get a good big there, and I mean they'll contend immediately. I mean they'll be really good just off rip if they can get Flag, but if they just get a competent big to just play with them, they'll be great. I think, especially in that first year.
Now, here's my thing. Do you even think there's a market for Embiid? I don't think there's one for Paul George at all. Like, I just don't think there's anyone willing to pay that big deal, and he's not even good. I mean, my only thought is like Bradley Beal, but I don't know if he'd even want to go to Philly. It's just like I don't know where that even goes. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on Embiid's value overall. I don't know what your insight is.
Yeah, perfect person to compare Paul George and his contract to is Bradley Beal.
Yeah.
y- teams want nothing to do with those two guys just because their contracts are so big and their performance does not match the amount of money they're being paid. Embiid, though, that's definitely tough because, if you're the Sixers, you're trading him and you're going to look for some good value back, but you're not really going to get that. He's not a very likable guy. If he goes to a team, I mean, you're going to the fans are obviously going to like him, but it's going to be tough to try and get him going and Paul George together and get decent pieces at best back based on like their recent performances and the money they're being paid. It's just a whole lot of bad scenarios mixed into one, and it's just unfortunate for them. But if I were Philly, I'd try and get off those two contracts and do as much as you can to try and build around Flag.
All right, so give me your number one, and then we will move on to our last segment, which is top five college basketball players of the last decade.
You did say it was boring earlier, and I went into a lot last episode, but I am going to go with the Spurs.
Okay.
You know, strictly talking about top three destinations for Flag. Um, San Antonio's one. And my reasoning for that is I feel like as an NBA player, the goal is to win a championship. And if you put flag on any of these teams, I feel like the Spurs has the best team to win the championship from year one to year five and past that. They have too much young talent to not be great. Um, and I feel like even at the young ages of all these talents, if they get flag as well, they'll be great from the jump. They'll be such a deep team. There's very little flaws to them. A little bit more juice and help from the big spot, like another good power forward to go along with them. But besides that, if they get that and they're all healthy, I see like top five in the West as a lock almost that first year
Hmm. I
as a
agree.
minimum. And I think they'll be really good if they can stay healthy. But health is the big question there with Wembanyama and what happened to him this year. But if he goes there, obviously I'm not a Spurs fan, but if I was, I'd be even more happy than when they got Wemby.
Listen, I mean, the whole Wembanyama like thing of this, I guess the wrinkle of that whole thing. There's never really been a guy like Wembanyama, and I know we talk about this a lot, like as a community, but like I just compare him to like someone like Ralph Sampson, who was like similar in stature. Ralph didn't last that long. I know times are different. That was like 40 years ago, but listen, I can I feel concerned for Wembanyama's health overall, and I think that would be what holds this team back if they want to go anywhere. I think this could be a flag in Wembanyama for the next 15 years, and it's like great. But if it doesn't work and Wembanyama is not healthy, it's just like this kind of sucks. Like we had a dynasty basically handed to us, and now we have nothing. And that's my biggest concern with Flag going to San Antonio. But again, he's still in a good market, playing for a great organization. So I just think it works. I mean, I think it works no matter what. But I just listen, as a Dallas fan, I'm tired of San Antonio fans. I always have been for as long as I've been a Dallas fan. I haven't liked them. So I mean, sue me, but not a San Antonio guy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't. I don't doubt it. If there was another neighboring team around me, for a Celtics fan, I hate the Sixers as well. They're like one of the
Yeah.
closer teams to them. So yeah, I don't blame you for disliking them a lot.
All right. Do you want to jump into our last segment?
Yeah, down.
All right. I really want to start because I've been really wanting to talk about my first pick, and this is not in any particular order. Just to be clear to everybody, we're just talking about our five favorite college basketball players over the last decade. For me, it's more like 5 or 6 years. Because I don't really remember college basketball in 2015. I mean, I vividly, very vaguely remember. But I'm just going to start off with Zion. Listen, we don't have to have a Zion discussion right now because there's everything about Zion's been said. But just as strictly college, 2019 when he was drafted, that was the first draft I paid attention to. And I remember the whole Anthony Davis fiasco going on at the time, and we're like, what's going to happen? Are the Lakers possibly going to get the first pick and get Zion? What do they do? Or do they keep Zion? Do they go LeBron Zion? Zion just had all the juice. I don't know how else to describe it. Like he just had that juice. Like he just was. Everyone was on Team Zion. It didn't matter if you were a Duke fan or not. Everyone was like, "This guy is incredible." Duke hype at the time was through the roof. I mean, you had RJ Barrett on the team. It was a really good team. And I mean, they didn't win, but like, it was just everyone, it was a team I really knew in college. It was just a team. It's just like, oh, Duke, they have like four guys going to the NBA. They're going to be good. And then there was like a level of like shock when Duke lost to Michigan State. It was like, what? They have like all these guys. They have Zion. How does Zion lose? Zion's like Superman to us. Because like when you're a kid, it's just like when you watch a guy that can jump as high as Zion and as strong as Zion, it's just like you don't imagine that guy losing. We don't have to have a Zion discussion right now because I know there's so much been said about Zion with all his off the court stuff and whatnot. But in the moment, Zion just felt like this guy is like seriously the next LeBron. Like not even like Ben Simmons, just like this guy is like some serious like he's a killer.
Yeah, I like Zion a lot too. That Duke team was filthy. They were deep, they were gross, and they were fun to watch too, on top of that. And Zion's one of the more fun college basketball players to watch in recent history based on, his freak athleticism. But yeah, I completely agree. He isn't on my list, but he's definitely up there with some like the my favorite guys to watch in college basketball in recent history.
All right, so why don't you give me your first guy?
All right, my first guy, ironically matched up with Zion famously in March Madness was Taco Fall.
Oh
Um,
yes.
My reasoning for that is because it's my favorite college basketball players. It's not the best. And Taco Fall was definitely was very impactful in college, but he was also just such a likable guy. You know, that matchup with Duke and UCF, that was a great matchup. That game was fun to watch. But Taco Fall, he's just such a great player and he was fun to watch. I wasn't huge into basketball then. Like, I wasn't like deep into like the knowledge that I try and have now. But like it was new for me to see someone that tall playing basketball and at the skill level that he was too. I mean, he was just so impactful for UCF and he gave them a run in March and that was just a very fun game to watch in March Madness. I vividly remember that and yeah, I he's just one of my favorite guys from recent history.
And listen, you couldn't escape Taco Fall if you were living in New England. I know you live in New England. He was everywhere. Even if you weren't really a basketball fan, you just knew who he was. He just kind of one of those guys that transcended basketball into like the meme culture, which is just weird. It's just like he's one of those guys. It's just like, and it was just his name was funny to Americans, and he was super tall. He was like 7'6", and it's just like this is a real guy in the NBA. Or well, yeah, when he went to the NBA, it was like he was in Boston. It's just like you can't escape this guy, and like there was a lot of like weird there's a lot of culture stuff around him, and I just think that he's a guy that you can't really forget about. He just like one of those like cult classic heroes like that you kind of get every couple of years where it's just like this guy is not really a successful NBA player, but he just forever remembered because he was such a an interesting guy in college.
Yeah, are you ready to get into your second guy?
Yeah, and it is Drew Timmy, and I know this guy has had an interesting career in the NBA. I mean, he's on Brooklyn, right? Do I have that right?
He is, yes.
Okay, I thought I was misremembering that. Listen, I think I knew he was serious. It was 2023, Sweet 16 against UCLA. He has like 36 and 13 or something. And I didn't really follow college that deeply. I mean, 2019 is when I paid attention, but I was like, what? Like, who is this guy? It's just like this guy is just like unbelievable. I'm like 36 and 13 in the NBA. That's ridiculous. And in college, it's just like forget it. Against UCLA, it's like holy shit. Freshman year, he gets shut down because of COVID, as we know. He's on the best basketball player or best basketball team in college, like but based off voting for the next 2 years. The 2022 team had 5 NBA players. They had Chet Holmgren, who was a great player, Andrew Nemhard, Julian Strawther, and Anton Watson. Season gets cut short, whatever. But like Timmy was just a guy who had juice. Like I use that term a lot, but he really had the juice. I mean, it was another guy you couldn't really get rid of. He had 25 points. I think this was his last game against Arkansas, and he went out with kind of a bang, even though he lost. But it was just like it felt like he won. Like it was weird because like he just played so well. It's just like you could have swore he won the game. And I know you've probably followed college at the time a little more than I did. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on Drew Timmy.
Yeah, I love your opinion on that. I love that. Um, Drew Timmy's a great guy, and it's exciting to see the success that a G League player who had great success in college and stayed a little bit later on can still have in the NBA. He's playing great now for the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah,
Obviously their team's completely blown up. They're obviously in full tank mode, but
it's not
it's
hard to
still
play good
exciting.
on that team. It's not hard to
It's
play
true.
good.
It's true. A
I
lot
could
of minutes to go
I would
around.
probably get like 12 minutes a game if they pick me up, honestly, right now.
I would actually enjoy watching those 12 minutes too. Um, but yeah, Drew Timmy's a great guy. Juice is a great word to use for him.
Yeah.
Um, he's just exciting to watch, and he makes basketball fun to watch if you're just getting into it, for sure.
All right, give me your number two.
All right, my number two, as a North Carolina fan, I like him a lot, is Kobe White.
Yeah.
Um, you know, just like I started really watching college basketball, especially North Carolina, when Kobe White was there. He was great. I loved watching him. He always made the games exciting to watch, and he was a name that I remembered well. And I kept remembering that name going into his first year in the NBA, seeing him go to the Bulls, and now he's completely balling there. I don't know how many years he's
Yeah.
been in the NBA now, but I mean, he's just been great for them, and I just enjoyed watching him a lot from the college years he was there. And I just love watching him now. He's just a really fun guard to watch. So yeah, that's definitely he might be my single favorite college basketball player of all time.
Yeah, he's a really interesting player. Another guy that kind of got into the meme culture. I don't think as far as Taco Fall, but I think there was a big Kobe White renaissance. Is that with the way I'd put it? Honestly, I mean, he had like a whole like cult following a little bit on social media. Yeah, listen, a great player. I think he was the Zion draft also. I mean, it was a really good draft. I mean, it would be real. So that's like 6 years we're closing in
Mhm.
on. That's like he's been around. Like he is like close to veteran status, which is weird because it's just like you think of him as like the college guy who is like a killer, but he's like kind of pushing like his into his mid 20s, pushing to 30. But he's still like he feels young. He feels like active still. I know he's in the NBA, so obviously he's active, but like physically, I feel like he's like mentally still always active, and his UNC runs great. So I mean, I don't have many more notes, so I'll give you my number three. It's my first Rhode Island guy because I'm just a homer for anyone from Rhode Island. Devin Carter. This is really important because I think because he was the last guy so far to come out of a Rhode Island school into the NBA draft. He just got drafted by the Kings last year. And he hasn't had like a great year for Sacramento, but again, Sacramento's been having like a weird year anyway with the whole firing of their coach, and it's just been really weird, especially with the De'Aaron trade. I don't even know. I have so many questions with them. But listen, he went from South Carolina. He goes to PC into his junior year. Junior year leads the Big East in scoring, and it's just like, wow, this guy's like awesome. He's averaging like 20 and 9, and he's a guard who's averaging 9 rebounds. And it's just like he's 6'3", and he's doing this. And I'm like, where has this guy been my whole life? It was kind of awesome to watch. And I know they didn't really. I don't even know if they made the tournament, but it's just like it's not the point. I mean, he made the NBA, and it just kind of feels like he put PC back on the map after PC's whole thing with Coolidge. It's just like it kind of fell apart. And I just think that he's super important to Rhode Island people. Just growing up here, if you went to PC, you were like a fan favorite. It didn't matter really who you were or where you came from. If you were a part of us, you were with us.
Yeah, I don't have a lot on him, but if same thing with New Hampshire, if you have a guy that comes out of New Hampshire and has the amount of success, you got to be rooting for him. I think it might have been second or third grade. We did a wax museum, and we all do people from New Hampshire, and I did Matt Bonner.
Mm,
So similar from there, little connection we can make there. Obviously I root for Matt Bonner just because of his time, and I liked him a lot when he played for the Spurs. Obviously, I wasn't big into basketball then, but watching his highlights, it's cool to see someone from New Hampshire having that much success at the NBA. But same thing with you in college and stuff like that. I mean, he's on the Kings, so there's a bright future for anybody on there that's looking for minutes and stuff like that. So yeah.
all right, why don't you give me your three? I'm excited to hear it.
My three is Carson Edwards. Um,
Yes, that's right.
Big into him. Watching his run, I mean, he's still in the record books for like most points in like a single March Madness game. He was filthy. I mean, talk about like being in the flow state in a basketball game.
Yeah,
That's him. I mean,
that's a
he
great
was just,
term. Great term.
yeah. I feel like he was just out there just trying stuff, and like he would just have like a shot come into his mind, and he just pull
Trying
it.
stuff.
I mean, he was insane, and like he's one of those guys where it's so fun to watch, and I still go back and watch his highlights. I'll replicate shots that he took in my driveway sometimes based on like how insane like the just like and when it was happening, it was so surprising because I don't know how big of a following or his name was prior to the March Madness run that he had, but I mean, he built his name up so much that he was drafted into the NBA that prior year. The next year to the Celtics, actually. He didn't
Yeah.
have a lot of success in the NBA, um, but he was just filthy in college, and like that's one of those runs that people are always going to remember, especially from a guard. But he's just such a fun guy to watch, and I like him a lot. So he's definitely up there for my favorite college basketball players from the recent history for sure.
So when you're in your driveway and you're like you're recreating those moments. I do that too sometimes. I used to a lot more when I was younger. Used to recreate those moments. Is it whenever there's a car driving by, do you like really like turn up the heat and you're just like trying stuff? You're like, just in case that's a scout, just like let me shoot this like fadeaway three real quick.
Yeah, I'll definitely pull all my tricks. I'll do a couple turnaround three pointers, make sure they're still looking. Um, but yeah, I mean, I just be trying stuff outside like he was, and I just have my phone propped up right by my step, and I'd just be watching his highlights and trying to replicate the shot in the same motion that he was. But yeah, I mean, he's just such a great guy to watch for sure.
Yeah, and the Boston thing, I don't want to talk too much about him because again, I'm not a Boston guy, but the Boston thing is definitely an important part of this whole thing. He was important. I mean, he was a when you're on the Celtics, people talk about you. Like anywhere in New England, people are going to talk about you. And I know a lot of people from Boston that were just super in on this guy. And I still don't really know what happened in the NBA. I have another guy on my list, not my next guy, the guy after, who was a big NBA guy, but just didn't really put it together. And I think you have a great example of another one right there. But I'm gonna give you my four, and it's another Rhode Island guy. He's a guy that just played this past season, did not make the tournament, but he just played. That's my guy Sebastian Thomas, and this is a URI legend. I mean, you want to talk about like Rhode Island culture? I think he might have like the most jersey sales in Rhode Island right now. Like everybody has his jersey. If you're at URI, like you just know this guy. Like he's like seriously talented. He led the A10 in assists and steals this past season. He's from Rhode Island. That's like an important thing. Like not only did he go to college in Rhode Island, he went to University of Rhode Island. He's from Rhode Island, and I've gotten to go. I personally have gotten to go to multiple home games of URI. Really good seats, by the way. Like I'm talking like 4 or 5 rows behind the bench. Like these were like great seats. Like I got these as a gift. Anyway, I saw two game winners from him in person. And the amount of like energy this guy brought to the team was just like off the charts. Like this is like a sellout crowd. The whole stadium's fucking losing their mind, and he hits an insane game winner. It's like he hits this like floater, like driving to the rim. He like falls, gets fouled, hits it off the glass, and the whole stadium just erupts. It's like you never hear anything like that. And I think when you see a guy like a really great athlete in person, it just changes how you see him. Like it just completely changes everything. And I don't know how much experience you have watching professional or college sports in person, but when you see a truly special athlete in person, it just changes how you feel about him. And I think that's how I feel about Thomas. I mean, and I don't know if he has any NBA stock right now. I wish he did. I mean, he's tremendously talented, but listen, he was a guy that absolutely was a killer for URI.
Yeah, I have two things to add to that. First is a question. Do you have his jersey?
Not yet. I actually want to get one. I just checked the URI store this morning. They're sold out. And it's like, that's what I mean. It's just like they're sold out online. And it's just like, that never happens. Like, how are you sold out online? That's what I mean. Like, everyone's buying this jersey. Like, this isn't just like a thing I'm making up just to prove a point. Like, this is real.
And my second thing I want to add to that is I feel like you mentioned, watching sports in person is a whole different thing, especially if you don't watch a whole lot of professional sports all the time in person. But I think that's a thing that all sports fans can connect to. And a vivid memory of mine is first NBA game I went to was, I don't remember when it was, but it was when Isaiah Thomas was on the Celtics
Okay.
and LeBron was on the Cavs. And it was
Oh my
LeBron
God.
and Kyrie versus
How
the
did you afford
Celtics.
that? I know you were like a kid, but like, how did you get there? It's just like,
I mean, going there with my family, and we were in the nosebleeds.
oh
I
my
mean,
God.
it was an insane game. Celtics won by 4, but from then on, I had a deep love for Isaiah Thomas. I follow him wherever he goes. Obviously he's in the G League now, but I mean, same thing with kind of how you're talking about like you have a different love for players when you see them play in person. That's the same thing with me, and I feel like all sports fans that have been to professional games and seen like some of their favorite players from them can all connect that way.
And I'm gonna do another comparison because I love telling this story. I went to the Patriots Chargers this past season, my first NFL game. I really haven't been to a lot of pro sports. My first MLB game was in September. This was my first NFL game. And this is the game where like Herbert had like 4 touchdowns and McConkey just went off. He had like three and everyone just losing their mind. I know, and Patriots fans, I was sitting behind a bunch of very, very wasted Patriots fans. Like just they're like talking to me the whole game, and I'm just like, listen, I just want to watch. I had McConkey on my fantasy. I'm like, listen, I just want to see my guy play, and it just changes how I saw Herbert. I know Herbert played really poorly in the playoffs, but it's just like it doesn't. I don't care. To me, that's such a special moment. He had like such an electric game, and you could kind of just feel the vibes. And there's just actually, I remember there was a Chargers fan, really nice guy, sitting right next to these really sloshed Patriots fans. And he was like getting harassed a little bit, but he was like a nice guy. So he wasn't like getting mad. He was just like laughing it off. But like they were like getting pretty physical. I was like, oh my God, this is just what New England is, I guess. But yeah, that's my example. So I'm gonna let you take the floor for your number four. I just gave you a long, long tangent. So
Um, my number 4 guy is someone from this year. That's
hmm.
Derek Queen. I
Okay,
was
yeah.
really into him like this whole freshman class. I mentioned it last episode as well. I was really into all of them when they were playing in high school, and that same goes for Derek Queen. He was just phenomenal for Montverde, and I had my eyes on him when he committed to Maryland, and I was watching the whole season. Um, and as a big time NBA fan, I'm always looking at draft stocks and like how it's gonna play out. And
Mhm.
part of the reason why I like him so much is because he's the definition of a guy who like his draft stock went up so fast based on the performance that he had this year. Um, I'm excited to see what he does in the NBA, but his short-lived college career was definitely great and remarkable. His one and only game winner out of everybody in March Madness this year. Um, you can fight me if it's a travel or not. Probably was, but I don't care. Game winner's a game winner.
Yeah.
Um, but he was just such a fun player to watch, and um, he just kind of like helped his team win, and he gave them a little run, and I liked him a lot, and he's definitely probably recency bias for why I chose him, but at the same time, I just like there's a certain like love for the game that comes out for me when I'm watching basketball and watching certain players, and I get that feeling when I'm watching him.
Listen, you nailed it on the head there. So I'm not going to try to take your spotlight there. So I'll give you my last one, and then you'll give me your last one, and then we'll talk about it, and then we'll wrap it up because I'm sure because this has been a really really great episode, but it's been a long episode.
For sure.
My last pick is Jarrett Culver at Texas Tech. Listen, this was a guy. I talked about a little before. He was sixth pick in the draft, and it's just like couldn't put together. And I still don't really understand it. I think he's overseas now, but it's just like I think I really liked him in college. I was looking back at his highlights, and I'm like, this guy is like pretty good. I mean, he's like a solid passer, like sneaky good. He's crafty. He's athletic. He can move off the ball. He's everything like you need from a wing, but he just couldn't put the jumper together. And then college, it doesn't really matter. I mean, he took Texas Tech to the final, and it's just like, okay, this guy's really good. And he got picked six overall, like I said. But you can't put a jumper together in the finals as a wing. Your career's not really going to last. I mean, I think like Matisse Thybulle is a good example, but even he is like kind of developing a shot a little bit. And it's just like, I don't know like how to feel. I really like Culver, and I hope he's doing well because I don't know, I haven't really heard from him in a while. But again, he took his team to the finals. He took them farther than John Morant got or Zion or anyone like that. And so he's kind of slept on now, which is weird. It's weird to talk about, but it's just like I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have a lot on him, but
Hmm.
I searched him up right now. I could be wrong, I'm not completely sure, but based on what Google says, he currently plays for the Magic's G League team.
Oh, really? Okay, good.
Yeah, so I mean, he's still hooping obviously, but based off what you said, he definitely seems like one of those more likable guys to watch for sure.
All right, why don't you give me your last one?
All right, my final one to round it out is Cam Reddish. And
Yes.
my reasoning for that is the way he played and the way he was talked about. My reasoning for the way he's talked about is there's a famous interview that someone had with Anthony Edwards, a young Anthony Edwards, saying, "Who's the hardest person to guard?" And obviously, Ant being the boastful and prideful person that he is, and
That's a
pretty
way to put
cocky
it.
guy,
That's
yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's better.
It's hard for him to say someone who who's cooking him,
Yeah.
and someone that he said was Cam Reddish. Cam Reddish
Mhm.
was a dog in high school and in college. His NBA career wasn't as people hoped it would be based on how good he was, but
Yeah.
he was really good on Duke. He was fun to watch too. And it's tough for me to say that someone who played for Duke is my favorite player, is one of my favorite players of all time in college basketball as a North Carolina fan. But he was, just the way he played, it was fun to watch, and the buzz around his name is just
Yeah.
interesting to me as well.
Listen, he carried himself a totally different way than I think a lot of players did. I don't know what it was, but when he got to Atlanta, I mean, I think they had DeAndre Hunter and they just got Clint Capella and they had Troy Young, and it's like this team might win a championship pretty soon. I mean, they didn't. They got to
Yeah,
a conference final though, and it's just like, all right, well, this is a start, and I don't know, they couldn't really put together. Maybe they make a run with Dyson Daniels now, but in the moment, it was like they kind of got something right now, and I really like
yeah,
Reddish too. I actually agree with you. I mean, I talked a lot about Zion, but that's what Cam Reddish is not far from behind as far as at that moment. Like Zion was obviously number one. I don't think anyone was going to argue there, but
yeah,
like Cam Reddish was like, okay, like this is a really like talented guy. I think they got
yeah,
something
for
here.
sure.
But any last second thoughts before we wrap up this episode?
No, I'm down to wrap it up for sure.
All right, well, Carter, thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure getting to talk with you about sports, about anything. Thank you all for watching. I've been your host, Connor Lewis, signing off.